أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن تدعوهم لا يسمعوا دعاءكم ولو سمعوا ما استجابوا لكم ويوم القيامة يكفرون بشرككم ولا ينبئك مثل خبير. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is stating His wahdaniyya, His tawheed, His oneness, that as the one who created the heavens and the earth without any prototype, al-Fatir, He now says that if you were to call others besides Allah to help you, to assist you, or to protect you, they will not listen to your calling. And even if they did hear, they would not respond to you. And on the Day of Judgment, they will deny your association with them. And there is no one to inform you of this like the one who is aware, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Khabir here refers to Allah. There is no one like Allah who can tell you what's going to happen after death on the Day of Judgment. So these are ayat again of Tawheed, oneness of Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who will hear and then heed the call of those who call Him, and anyone else, everyone else will not be able to respond to anyone's petition, anyone's supplication. This is the norm of the cosmos, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has subjugated everything He's created for the sake of human beings, and human beings must subjugate their will and their desire to His will and to His desire. Yeah. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is informing us through His name Al-Khabir, the one who informs, that only He knows what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment, because no one else has access to that knowledge. No one has been there. No one has witnessed that. But since Allah's knowledge is eternal, His knowledge comes into play here. And He has given us forewarning that this is going to happen, so we should take heed of what it is He is informing us about. Which leads us into the next ayah. Since we all need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every facet of life, especially the facet of knowledge, likewise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqaraa ila Allah. O mankind, indeed all of you are totally dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That all of you need Allah for everything in this world and everything in the other world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself, Wallahu huwa al-Ghaniyyul Al-Hamid, He is the one who is absolutely independent and the one who is praiseworthy. So now someone who is independent and doesn't need anyone else may resort to a sense of arrogance and pride, where he would disown and then he would fend off others who need him. But Allah is not that way. He is Al-Hamid, the one who is praiseworthy just because He is. So in this ayah there are many insights that we don't have time to get into. But anyway, just to give you some highlights of this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now showing us the way forward towards His rahmah, towards His mercy. That the way you are going to acquire and procure Allah's rahmah is by showing your total and utter dependence upon Him. You are not going to acquire nor procure His rahmah by being arrogant and by being rebellious. this is on many fronts and for many reasons. One is that we all need him, and the other is that we don't have anything in of ourselves. So antum al-fuqaraa, all of you are indeed poor and in need. And what are you in need of? Allah. So by definition, man is dependent. What is he dependent upon? Everything around him he's dependent on. The earth, he's dependent on gravity, he's dependent on the sun, the moon, he's dependent on the rain, he's dependent on the air, he's dependent on everything that is around him. If he says for a second, I'm independent of everything, then he's lying. So man needs everything around him in order to exist. So all the tools and props by which man exists, they're all created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now it's a question for man to acknowledge the existence of God or not to acknowledge the existence of God. Those who don't acknowledge, we're not talking to them. They're atheists, so they're outside the fold of this conversation. Right? But nevertheless, they still need everything around them. They're still dependent on everything around them, whether they say God created this, or God did not create this, or there's no God. It doesn't matter. They are still fuqaraa. They're still poor. Okay? They are still in need of everything. They can't breathe if there's no air, no oxygen. They can't live if there's no water. They can't sustain themselves if there's no food, no nourishment. And they can't live on the planet if there's no sun, moon, and stars, and so on, so forth. So they are dependent also, even though they deny the existence of Allah, or they deny the existence of them being dependent of Allah. Irrespective of that, they are faqir. They're in need. They're always in need. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the other hand, doesn't need anything because He is above and beyond any need, because He is the creator, He is the maker, and so on. But despite being this, He is al-Hamid. He is praiseworthy, and He offers human beings food, water, drink, a canopy under which they can live and sleep, okay, an abode, a time, and they have their lives and everything else that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them in order for them to sustain themselves, live, and also to worship Him, and also to acquire His rahmah and His mercy. So He is praiseworthy. He doesn't say to human beings that since you don't worship me, or since you don't you don't deny my existence, I'm going to punish you. He doesn't do that. Why? Because He's Al-Hamid, the one who is praiseworthy by being. Just because He is, He's praiseworthy. He doesn't have to do anything. He is praiseworthy, period. But as part of His being praiseworthy, He feeds and sustains everybody, even though they may reject Him, or they may do things against His commands and not follow His rules and instructions and so on. So here all of mankind is in need of Allah, and Allah is not in need of anyone, but Allah is the one who serves them the most. Allah is the one who serves man the most. Man can't serve man the way Allah serves man, and that is a fact if you believe in God and if you believe in the existence of a supreme maker and a supreme creator. إِن يَشَأْ يُذْهِبْكُمْ وَيَأْتِ بِخَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. If He wanted, He could take you away. He could remove you, and then He could bring a new creation in front of you and after you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also Al-Qadir. He is the all-powerful, and He's able to exercise His might and His power if He wills, but He doesn't will. He wants you to reform, and He's given you a chance, He's given you respite, so that you come back to terms, you come back to the path, and you come back to worshipping and dedicating your lives for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His cause. So if He wanted to, He could have just dispensed with you. He is not in need of you, nor is He in need of your worship, as we always say. وَمَا ذَلِكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ بِعَزِيزٍ. And this is not at all mighty and supreme for Allah. This is not too difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do, because He may create and uncreate at will, the way He wants to, if He wants to. So all of these ayat speak to the lordship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rububiyyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon mankind, and it speaks to the idea that in time and space Allah gives human beings time to reform, and time to repent, and time to change, and time to do things so that they will be on a better platform when they meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. One of the most important civilizational values that Islam brings to the table is this, that no one is going to carry the load of another. No one is going to carry the sin of another. So human responsibility and individual responsibility is central to the understanding of Islam. That in Islam, everybody is responsible for their own actions. So this gives you a sense that human beings do have some volition, human beings do have a will, and they have the ability to do, and they also have the ability not to do. That is why they are responsible. Accountability in front of Allah is necessary for us to appreciate. Also accountability in front of others. So there are two rules of accountability. One is in front of Allah, and one is in front of each other. So in front of each other you have law and order, you have society, you have civilization, you have government, and all of that. Checks and balances. Human beings impose checks and balances upon each other, where you take on responsibility of each other, of one's own individual action. If somebody is to say that, this one killed this one, but this one will not be responsible, but someone else will be responsible. So that in the system of governance is ludicrous. Right? Meaning if A killed B, and then the system says, no, A will not be responsible, C will be responsible. That doesn't jive, does it? In the human system, where we're responsible for our own actions, and we're responsible for accountability in front of each other. So if A kills B, and then A says, no, my burden will be carried by C, everybody in the world will say, you're stupid. Right? But what will happen on the Day of Judgment? And you have a Redeemer. That doesn't work. If it doesn't work here, how is it going to work in the divine court? In the human court, it doesn't work, where everyone's responsible for their own actions. And how are you going to say that on the Day of Judgment there will be someone who will redeem everybody and carry all their burdens and their sins? Meaning that it has to be consistent. If you have a theory of governance, and if you have a theory of law and order, then it has to remain consistent throughout each world, here and there. But yours doesn't. It falls flat on your face. So here, you will not allow anyone to get away with a penny. Uncle Sam will come after. You're responsible for this penny. You have to give it. On the Day of Judgment, somebody else will take care of this. That doesn't work. It's not logical. Right? There's no rationale behind that, period. So here, that's number one. Number two, the Quran emphasizes that you must behave as a responsible person at all times. That you are responsible for your actions here in this world, and you are responsible for your salvation in the other world. No one can intercede, and no one can interfere, and no one can say that I'll take care of it. That's huge. So that gives you a sense of maturity. Usually we are supposed to develop our children in such a way that they take on this responsibility by the age of 15. Right? That's what's supposed to happen. By the age of 15, Salat comes at what? 7, then 10. But by the age of 15, they should be morally responsible, legally responsible. But Sharia gave us a timeline. Okay, if you're not 15, where they reach the age of puberty, then at least 18. Right? Abu Hanifa's opinion, legally, they become responsible at 18 unless they achieve puberty before that. So at the age of 18, they're supposed to be individual and responsible for their own lives. That's what this ayah is saying. You can't take on the burden of their lives. You can't eat for them. You can't dress for them. You can't do their salat for them. And simply, you can't really think for them either. Well, you shouldn't. Let them be. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay? It doesn't happen anymore. We'll be grandfathers, and our fathers will still call us bache. Children. Right? So that is not a mature society. That's a backward society, where the society is not giving the individual the freedom to develop as a mature individual, where you're shepherding the whole individual so that the individual doesn't make any mistakes. But in your quest to stop him from making mistakes, you're going to make mistakes. And the biggest mistake is not to make him or her responsible. Who is responsible for salat? You are. Who is responsible for Sawm? You are. Who is responsible to be good? You are. So why can't you make him or her responsible for everything else in life? وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةُ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. No one carries the burden of anyone else. Yes, you may guide and you may direct, but you can't take on the burden. When this was the norm of a Muslim community society, we were mature and we took on the world. MashaAllah. Right? But when we lost this and everybody became so patronizing and so shepherding of each other, then we started to fall, because now you are saying, no, I'm going to carry the burden of this child and this child and this child, and then the grandchild also. Right? Not only the child, I'm going to carry the burden of the grandchild also, which is supposed to be the burden of your child, because that's his child, not yours. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that in the social construct, this ayah is not just speaking about the Day of Judgment. This ayah is speaking about how we apply this civilizational value in our lives here, socially and obviously legally, and then politically, where we are responsible for our actions. We should be, but obviously, as I've mentioned, the community is very far from that. The ideal, you can't even speak about it unless you're here. If I was to say this on the mimbar in a masjid, I won't be invited to that masjid again. Why? People have become so immature that how dare you even suggest my child, who's 23 years old, has an opinion? No? Carry each other's burdens doesn't work. You have to let the child become mature. In that process, they will invariably make mistakes, as you made mistakes. And that's the sign of a mature society. That's the sign of a society that wants to do good for each other, not to carry each other's burdens. Anyway, that's one application. وَإِن تَدْعُ مُثْقَلَةٌ إِلَى حِمْلِهَا لَا يُحْمَلْ مِنْهُ شَيْءٍ. And if they were to call, if someone who has a burden, muthqala, was to call upon someone else to carry, then they will not be able to carry anything for that. وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى, even though they may be closely related. Even though they might be close, this happens obviously when there's a tribal system, then these close relatives, or you have a community that is close-knit with family ties and connections, which is all fine, wonderful. There's no doubt it should be that way, except when you're not allowing the person to carry his or her own burden. Right? Yeah. So when you do, when you tell your child, mashallah, I want to marry this person, so what do you tell the child? I will make istikhara for you. Wow. I will make istikhara. But you're not the one getting married, Baba. It's the child who's getting married. Let the child make istikhara. When you say istikhara, you say, I'm seeking madad and help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so there's some khair in what I want to do. I'm seeking Allah's madad and help for me, not for you. So there's over-engaging and there's interference with other people's lives. Now here, obviously this refers to the Day of Judgment, that on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not allow, and human beings themselves will run away from each other. That a father will come to the son, and the father will say, I did everything for you. And the son will say, yes, you did. And the father will say, I need a few good deeds. And the son will say, Salaamu Alaikum. The son will say, I have my own salvation to worry about. He ain't helping you. Right? وَلَا يَجْزِي وَالِدٌ عَنْ وَالِدِهِ شَيْئًا. So there's that ayah, and also the ayah, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. The day when everybody will run away from their mothers and their fathers and their wives and their brothers and everybody. So this is what the Quran is saying, that if you want to become responsible on the Day of Judgment, you must become responsible in this world. And if you're not able to do that, then there's something wrong with you, and there's something wrong with the system that you live in. You must become responsible. Otherwise, you'll be in a state of loss. إِنَّمَا تُنذِرُ الَّذِينَ يَخْشَوْنَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَيْبِ وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ. Indeed, those who believe in Allah through the ghaib, in the unseen, they are the ones who will be warned, and they will be the ones who will take heed to the warning. Yeah. So here we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that every human being must develop a one-on-one relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any intermediary, without anyone coming in between. Again, you can guide and you may direct, but you can't interfere. When you worship Allah alone, bil ghaib, in the unseen. You can't see Him, and that's why you worship Him, because you can't see Him. He can see you, but you can't see Him. Yeah. So this develops, this ibadah bil ghaib develops the ability to take on responsibilities and take on challenges in the world as if we are the ones who are going to be responsible for the consequences and so on. So bil ghaib here is a huge reality, that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the ghaib, because He is in the ghaib, He is in the unseen, and He does not come into the open to reveal Himself here. Although when we do salat with ihsan, it is as if we are seeing Him. Right? أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. As if we are seeing Him. As if, not that we are. And if we can't do that, we should know that He is seeing us. وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةِ. And then they establish salah because they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bil ghaib. So worshipping Allah or fearing Allah bil ghaib is now the general rule, and establishing salat now is a particular exercise of spiritual worship and so on. And then the final application of this is this: وَمَنْ تَزَكَّى فَإِنَّمَا يَتَزَكَّى لِنَفْسِهِ. Whoever is now going to purify, then he will be purifying himself. You cannot purify others. Nuh alayhi salam could not purify one of his sons. Right? Ibrahim alayhi salam could not purify his father. The Prophet ﷺ could not purify his own uncle. وَمَنْ تَزَكَّى فَإِنَّمَا يَتَزَكَّى لِنَفْسِهِ. So when you purify, you're purifying you, no one else. No one can do that and take on the burden and responsibility of purifying someone else. So it is you that is the center and focus of the universe. You must increase your importance in your mind to the extent and degree that you say, this is about me, my worship, my sincerity, and my spirituality, and so on. فَإِنَّمَا يَتَزَكَّى لِنَفْسِهِ, that he is going to seek to purify himself. Allah is the one who eventually purifies. وَلَا تَزَكُّوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, as the Quran also says in another ayah, that do not purify yourselves and seek purity amongst yourselves and say, this one is pure and this one is pure and this one, you don't know. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. All we know is what is the apparent. And if apparently somebody is doing good, then mashallah he's good. Otherwise we should not draw any conclusions except that which is through wahi. So if through wahi Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us indications or information that all prophets are purified, then we will hold them to that standard and we will say that they are infallible. If through wahi the Prophet ﷺ told us Abu Bakr and Umar, Uthman, Ali are purified, all the Sahaba are purified, then we will hold them to that rank and we will make it part of our aqidah that they are purified because Allah has told us. So it's about wahi, it is about conclusive knowledge. The khabir, the one who knows, has informed us of this purity of these people, and that is what we believe in. If the mukhbir or the khabir has not informed us, then we will not make any emphatic statements about anyone, except that we will say through husn al-dhan and a good assumption of people and believers, they are good. Right? That's the only thing we can say about this process in the community, in the society. But the key thing here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying we should be in the mood and mode of purification. وَمَنْ تَزَكَّى, whoever seeks to purify himself, there should be an effort from everybody as individuals to purify themselves so that they get rid of their impurities and they get rid of their vices and all of their faults and mistakes, and they get rid of their sins and so on, so they're pure in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as humanly possible. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ الْمَصِيرُ, and it is only to Allah that the return journey is the place of abode, and the ultimate destiny is only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who is going to judge us and who is going to give us what we will receive from him through his fadl, inshallah ta'ala. So these ayat speak of individual and collective responsibility, individual and collective purification, so that the thrust of the ummah is on purification, is not on vilifying. That you don't want a community that bases its opinions on gossip and bases opinion on very dirty journalism or very dirty politics and so on. Here the code for the Muslim community is purification, that there should be tahara, that we seek purity and we don't want filth to be associated with the Muslim community, even though the Muslim community may be associated with filth. That's a different issue. Everybody are guilty of sin, as we all know. But we don't promote it, and we don't let it loose, and we don't shoot that out into the community, especially when it happens. We have to be careful how we go about addressing some of these issues. The issue there is on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will purify everybody, and inshallah He will allow them to enter His Jannah through His fadl, inshallah. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الظُّلُمَاتُ وَلَا النُّورُ وَلَا الظِّلُّ وَلَا الْحَرُورُ وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَحْيَاءُ وَلَا الْأَمْوَاتُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَن فِي الْقُبُورِ. Here we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving us some similes and examples so that we are rightly guided and we seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fadl and we seek His rahmah, as we are indeed in need of His rahmah and His fadl. So he coins these examples was that the blind and the one who sees, they are not the same. They're not equal. Somebody who is blind, he cannot be on equal terms as someone who is now seeing. This is not about legal rights. Not about legal rights here. So that's why it's an example. They say, why, how can a blind man have rights? The blind man has rights. Okay. That's the done deal. Okay, let's move on from the legal issue. So it's not about the legal issue. It is about the idea that socially, psychologically, and spiritually, a person who can see is much better than someone who can't see. Someone who sees the right from the wrong, someone who sees the truth from the falsehood, someone who sees goodness from sin is much better than the person who doesn't see that. I mean, that person is blind, and this person is the one who is seeing. And this is the example Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using so that we understand how to maneuver in society and how to compare. So when we are comparing the lives of human beings, as we perhaps should do for the sake of promoting goodness, then we will say someone who is here and he doesn't see that drugs are lethal, or alcohol is a killer, or gambling is a vice or a sin. They don't see it because they're addicted to it. So now, in that addiction, they don't see, so they're blind. So they can't lead people into something where is going to bring felicity and happiness to society. Then they have to be led by people who see. Even those people who see are much less, and they're fewer than the people who don't see. So it's not about the numbers. Right? وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But most people, they don't know. The Quran says. The Quran is saying that most people don't know. So there are going to be people who will see, and there are going to be people who will not see. So who will be the rightly guided? The one who sees or the one who doesn't see? وَلَا الظُّلُمَاتُ وَلَا النُّورُ. And likewise, the darknesses, they cannot be equal to the nur, to the living, to the light, sorry. Yeah. So you have many forms of darknesses and ignorances, and then you have one light, the light that guides you towards the ultimate truth and towards the criterion between right and wrong. That is one nur, that is one light. That light, once it shines in you and through you, will allow you to navigate your life in such a way that will be pleasing to you and pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now this is the second example. One is that of seeing, and the other is that of not having the tools by which we see. And the first example is about seeing itself. The second example is about having the props or the tools by which we see, because we see by the nur, we see by light. If you turn the lights off here, it will be very dark here, and we may not be able to see everything properly. Right? So now, that's called the tool of seeing. So not just the art of seeing, but also the tools by which we see. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coins this example, but we see through knowledge, which is nur. We see through the Quran, which is nur. We see through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is nur. And we see everything through nur. That is nur. So these are the props and the tools by which we are allowed and we are able to see. So that's a second level of an example. And thirdly, وَلَا الظِّلُّ وَلَا الْحَرُورُ. That the shades are not the same as the heat. Yeah, so you can do this both ways. You can say the shade is good and the heat is not, or the heat is good and the shade is not. Either way, these are, as I said, the parables and the examples. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to think about these so that we're able to see that when we are in the shade, we are better rested. And when we're in the heat, we're not rested. We're sweating, we're perspiring. And when we're in the shade, we relax and we're calm. And we can make decisions properly and so on. But when we're in the heat, we can't make decisions because we are frustrated and we are angry and all of that. Okay? So these are all parables, examples that we are being informed of by the Quran, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now, then in that case, if you go this way, then that means that a state of calm is better than a state of agitation. That's what it would mean. Dhil there, I mean, in a state of calm, that you're in the shade, you're under the shade of an umbrella, but it's very, very hot outside. Or that is very hot outside and there's no shade. So when you're in a state of calm, you can make judgments. But when you are agitated, you can't make judgments. So there'll be one way to understand the ayah. There are other ways also of understanding this example. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَحْيَاءُ وَلَا الْأَمْوَاتُ. And then finally, life itself. So those who are living are not the same as those who are dead. Right. So in the first two ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the two negatives first, and in the second two ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought the two positives first. Right, if you go with the interpretation I mentioned about dhil and so on. So here, al-ahya, those who are alive, and al-amwat, those who are dead. Yeah. A living person is a person who sees through the nur that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him, who makes the right judgment, who makes the right call, who does the right act, who pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is alive. It's not that life is full of energy and motion. No, this is something else. This is a spiritual life Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to. Right? And the other life is also the lack of a spiritual life, where a human being is practically dead. Dead because there is no conscience, and dead because there is no wisdom, dead because there is no nur, no light to guide that person, and dead because everything revolves around filth and sin. That's a dead life. Right. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to see the nur and the darkness, the light and the darkness, life and death. So this, as I mentioned, these are examples and parables that the Quran is using so that human beings will be rightly guided. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I've given you means of nur and light and guidance in the heavens. I've given you means of light and guidance on earth. I'm giving you means of light and guidance in your mind, in your ruh, in your spirit. Everywhere you go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you with guidance. So you are all dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is not at all dependent on you. So the way to procure Allah's rahmah is to remain dependent on Allah's guidance, on Allah's nur, not to become independent of His guidance. This is how you take it back to the original ayah. Ya ayyuhan nas antum al-fuqaraa ilallah. O mankind, you're all dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for your guidance and for your salvation, felicity and happiness, both in this world and the world hereafter, you are dependent upon Allah. What Allah provides for you, you use. And if Allah did not provide that for you, then you lose. Yeah. So even there, the human being must not come to a conclusion just because the human being has a mind. Yeah. Everybody has, mashallah, mind. And some people use their mind for violence and for sin. Others, they use it for ibadah and worship and service, and serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and serving other human beings. So the two tracks are very, very separate. So these parables and examples are there to help us procure the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon which we are dependent. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah is going to cause whomever He wants to hear. So Allah is the one who's going to give guidance. Here, causing someone to hear means that they take heed of this advice and they look to this guidance as guidance. In that sense, isma', that Allah causes them to hear, not physically necessarily. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who causes people to hear so that they become guided. وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ, and you are not about to make anyone in the grave listen or hear. Right? Meaning those who are dead, you can't make them hear because their faculties have gone. Their conscience is not there, their spiritual faculties have died, and it doesn't matter how many lectures or how many talks or how many whatever things you do to bring them to the path. If the ability to listen has not been created, they will not listen. This is what this ayah says, that those who are in their graves, meaning not physically, but metaphysically, they're in their graves. They're in a state of total ghafla and oblivion. They don't know who Allah is, they don't know who the Rasul is. They live in this world like chicken without a head. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now bringing us towards His rahmah, towards His mercy, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives guidance. He's the one who makes people hear, and no one can make people hear when Allah does not want them to hear. This is the ultimate destiny that Allah brings to the table, that at the end of the day, it is Allah's will. Inna Allah yusmi'u man yasha'. Allah's mashiyah, Allah's eternal will decide what is going to happen to this. However, in the system of the world where there's cause and effect, we will say we will do what we can to make people hear. We will do what we can to help each other. We will do what we can to help ourselves. That is in this world, in the realm of cause and effect. Allah wants us to do that, go through this procedure and go through this process so that there is volition and there is accountability. If someone doesn't do that and they make Allah Himself accountable, then he is saying, God is now taking on my burden. Which is even worse, the fatalist. When the fatalists say, God takes on my burden. So there are others who say, this person, this Nabi in our obviously Aqidah, and this one who is God takes on the burden. Here the fatalists go further and they say God has taken on the burden of everybody, so there's no volition and there's no human free will and there's no responsibility, period. That's even worse. They're the worst of the worst. So we don't want to go that way. So Allah is providing us with all these forms of guidance so that we may reap from His mercy and from His rahmah and be rightly guided. إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا وَإِن مِّنْ أُمَّةٍ إِلَّا خَلَا فِيهَا نَذِيرٌ. Here, in as far as understanding accountability, since this ayah is in the context of لَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, that there is accountability for each individual. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah that He has provided means of guidance for each individual and for each community so that they cannot claim on the Day of Judgment, God, you did not guide us. So Allah here says that indeed we have sent you with the ultimate truth. In the previous ayah, in ant illa nadheer, indeed you are nothing except a warner. In this ayah Allah says, Inna arsalnaka bilhaq, indeed we have sent you with the ultimate truth, with the truth, as one who gives glad tidings and one who gives warnings. And there has been no community except that there has been a warner in that community. So every community that has existed as a society, as an ummah, they have been given a nadheer, a warner. Someone has come to them in some shape or form to inform them that God exists and to inform them about the realities of life and the realities of death and the realities of afterlife and so on. So now this ayah, Imam Abu Hanifa says that the word warner in the second ayah, إِلَّا خَلَا فِيهَا nadheer, does not necessarily refer to just a Nabi or Prophet. it may refer to the human mind also. That the human mind is also a warner. That the human intellect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given everybody enough intellect by which they should be able to deduce and conclude that God is one, that the creator of this universe is one. Yeah, that is how he sees this ayah, and we agree with that interpretation. So every human being is responsible to believe that Allah is one. That is embedded in us. We are indebted with that faculty if we choose to use it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another ayah, وَكَأَيٍّ مِّنْ آيَةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَمُرُّونَ عَلَيْهَا وَهُمْ عَنْهَا مُعْرِضُونَ. There are so many ayat and signs that they pass by, but they refrain from them. So Allah sends ayat, signs, to every human being. Every human being's life is filled with these signs, these warnings. You're not in control. Someone else is in control. You're not in control. I want to do this, and I couldn't do this. Why couldn't I do this? Why? Then obviously you go into this phase of thinking, reflecting, contemplating, and you should be able to deduce someone else is in control. Every human being has been given warnings and signs, either through dreams or personal experiences or experiences in the cosmos around them, in the world events, that there is a maker, creator to everything, and they must conclude that they have this right, that God is one, or the creator of the universe is one, in any which language, doesn't matter, that's fine. But here this ayah is speaking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as someone who comes to warn and someone who comes to guide and give glad tidings. This is his role. And after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there is no other Nabi and there is no other nadheer. So it will have to suffice that the Ummah takes on this responsibility to show and inform people that Allah is one and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the truth and he came with the truth and so on. So inshallah we will stop here for today. These ayat speak about man's accountability in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for that accountability there has to be a reason, a divine reason for the divine to say that punishment is legitimate. Right? Yes, so divine punishment will also ascertain and then go through this process of cause and effect. So the cause is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sending warnings. So Allah sends warnings to people through the Anbiya alayhi salam, that this is a warning, this is a warning, and this is a warning. If people take heed, then that cause and effect has been established. But this is to show that human beings are individually responsible, and more than that, human beings have a certain amount of volition, a certain amount of free will that they can choose to do and choose not to do. It is based on that the hisab will be. The hisab will be on this choice. The questioning will be on the choice that we make, and the act follows the choice. This is how we see these ayat playing out, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is al-Fatir, the one who creates without any prototype. He now says to the human being that I'm going to give you volition. I'll provide all of these means, props, apparatus around you so that you may sustain yourself, live, exist, and so on. At the same time, I'm going to give you something that will allow you to choose between doing right and doing wrong. That is what we call volition, the human niyyah, the human intention. Once we have established that, then we can say that all the other compensation that we have that leads to hisab and accountability on the Day of Judgment, they're all justified. Anyway, as a rational understanding of these ayat. Nas'al al-afiyya wa tawfiq, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.